Hi, I'm Richard Rogers, and I absolutely hope that you enjoy today's spiritual message. You know, we at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center are committed to helping people live better lives. We're going to provide you tools over and over, spiritual tools that allow you to live your best possible life. And if you want to leave a donation to continue to allow the work that we do to support other people just like you, we say thank you. Thank you for your generosity, because this ministry is committed to making the world a better place. So are you living strong? We got one person that says, yeah. Okay. It's like, come on, don't make me work this hard. Come on, are we living strong? We're up to 4. Woohoo! Right? Because what I want you to look at is I want to play with what that means to live strong. And especially what it means to live spiritually strong. So if you look at yourself, as you look at your life right now, do you feel spiritually strong or do you feel spiritually weak? Well, it depends on which day it is. Depends on if it's before 3 o'clock or after 3 o'clock. Right? Because what I want you to see tonight is I want you to really play with this idea of being spiritually strong. Because spiritually strong is different than being spiritually powerful. And I don't think there's a person in this room from time to time who hasn't felt spiritually weak, who hasn't wanted to give up, who hasn't wanted to have an I quit day. Has everybody had recently or in the past year or so a time when you just wanted to go back to bed? Where you just wanted to have an I quit day. We like pull the covers over your head, I quit. I can't play this game anymore. I can't be any stronger than I have been. It's not working. I'm not happy. Good night. Right? And we have permission to be spiritually weak from time to time. But what I want us to really look at is that the dominant way that we're showing up? Or are we showing up strong? Where we really feel like every day we're after it. Every day we're on purpose. Every day we're living our spiritual practice. We're living the thing that we know to be true. Because over and over again, I want us to clearly understand the difference between power and strength. Okay? So I'm just going to, so power versus strength. Okay? Now, in science books, power is defined as the ability to accomplish or move, accomplish work or move objects, right? And strength is defined as the ability, is the way I'm defining it tonight, is the ability to keep on keeping on. Right? Does that make sense? The sound room like that one, right? So strength is the ability to continue to go even when there's a part of you that doesn't want to go. Right? And so one of the ways when it comes to science that we define power is horsepower. Right? Now, I looked it up today. Do you know a dragster, top fuel dragster, has 10,000 horsepower? The average dragster has 10,000 horsepower. Can I say that one more time? Because I think it's just a guy thing. But 10,000 horsepower is an incredibly cool thing, right? 10,000 horsepower. Now, then I looked at my car. Guess how much horsepower my car has? 200. So a dragster has 50 times more power than my car. I mean, all you have to do is kind of touch the accelerator on 10,000 horsepower and you get a rush. Right? You don't even have to have it in gear. Just the vibration of all that power. It's such a masculine, and I know it's like just let me have my little moment here. It is such a rush, right? And then, of course, I read on Facebook, because Facebook has this way of kind of just really taking me down to my spiritual truth. And so as I was kind of writing a post this afternoon about my talk, this lady says, why is it that when I go to an intersection, there's always a man, a boy, who thinks he needs to rev his engine. And I think, well, lady, that was my whole talk. Thank you very much. Right? Because the reality is that when you have a dragster at 10,000 horsepower, its only purpose is to go how far? Quarter mile, right? Quarter mile. Its only job is to go from here a quarter of a mile. I mean, that's not even Greenway, right? And that's its own job. And then when it does that, they take that whole engine apart, right? Because they're only about power. Now, my little 200 horsepower car has already gone over 100,000 miles, and nobody's ever taken it apart. Right? Because my little car has strength. Does that make sense? And that little guy can just keep going and going. It is the Energizer Bunny, right? Because it has the power to keep on keeping on. We've driven it across the country. Then we drove it back across the country. We have put 100,000 miles on that little car. We've had the dog in the back the whole time. I mean, we have driven that car, and other than a couple sets of brakes and a couple sets of tires, it's been strong. It's strong. Now, the one that looks the most fun is not the one that keeps on going. True? The one that looks the most fun is the one that you have to keep taking apart. Anybody ever had a date like that? Right? Nobody's ever had a date like that. A date that you absolutely, by the time the evening was over, you felt like you had to take them apart just to send them home. Right? Because, right, they might have been a ton of fun, but you were always having to put them back together. Right? It's not as much fun. But what's more fun is a date that actually can make it through an hour and a half, like without having a major meltdown. Amen? Right? So over and over again, what I want you to look at is the difference between power versus strength. How many of you remember the story of the tortoise and the hare? Tortoise and the hare. Okay, great. I thought that you were with me. Now, which column would you put the hare? Why? Because he's fast, right? And you'd put the tortoise because he just keeps on going. Right? The tortoise won the race because he just didn't stop. Right? Now, when it comes, which of these things, if you looked at from a spiritual perspective, actually is more spiritually aligned? Power or strength? Only because we live in an infinite universe that has no determination on time. If we didn't live in an eternal experience, getting it fast would be more important. But our ego loves fast. Like when we read the scripture and we see that Jesus just slapped something and he turned water into wine, did he take 20 years to do that? Most weddings do not last 20 years. Right? So he did it instantly. And so we have this belief, right, that if we're really living the spiritual life, we should be able to speak the word to everything in our life, and it should transform instantly. Because we feel like we're supposed to be spiritually powerful. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be spiritually powerful. But what I also want you to see is that's kind of the free introductory offer. Like you wouldn't get people hooked into really discovering their spiritual nature if you told them it was a 1,000-year process. But if you tell people, oh, you do this affirmation, and you'll start to see change instantly in your life. And it's like, instantly? Oh, yeah, instantly. Right? And so they get excited about the power of transforming everything in their life instantly. How many of you ever done a treasure map? And the moment you put the treasure map up, it felt like within like days, weeks, your whole life, you had manifestations, and you had a new job offer, and you got in a prayer group, and instantly everything started changing in your life. And that's the free introductory offer. And I absolutely do not want to take that away from you. But it's also how you kind of hook the spiritually immature so that they're willing to stay in it long enough till they get deeper, more profound results. Because yes, you are powerful. As a spiritual being, yes, you are powerful. But you also need to know your strength. And your strength is the ability to keep on keeping on over and over again till you get the results that you want, even when it doesn't happen instantly. Now, again, power looks sexier. I mean, you know, when you see the guys on TV that heal people and they just slap them in the forehead, they don't slap them in the forehead and say, I'll see you in 20 years when you get healed. But sometimes the healing does take a long time. And then we think we're not doing it right. Because we've been led to believe that if it's working, it happens fast. What is important enough in your life that you'd be willing to dedicate the rest of your life to seeing that manifest in your life? What's important enough for you that you'd be willing to put the time and the effort day in and day out as a deep, profound spiritual practice so that you could actually create what you want? Because if you could do it instantly, who wouldn't sign up for that? But part of our spiritual life is learning that this is an eternal experience. I think I've told this story before. One summer we were traveling. We were in the South, and we were in South Carolina, and we went out to dinner with some friends who lived in the area, and they took us to this old Southern restaurant, and you know, everything was fabulous, and it was just fabulous. And then at the end of the meal, we kind of just wandered out to the porch, you know, and I at this time I was a high A personality. You know, if this is an A personality, this was me, right? So we wandered out to the porch, and they said, would you like to sit for a spell? Like everything in me screamed, no. And if it wasn't also another minister, I would have said, right? Right? Like no part of me wanted to sit on a porch after a meal, right? Okay, I'm doing it. Like, and then you rock for a spell. And I didn't know how long a spell was. I didn't know. I didn't know if I was doing it right? You know, there was no stopwatch. There was no competition. If we were racing up and down the porch, I would have been all over it, right? You know, anything, cards, give me something. We just sat there. And I realized that I really had the attention span of a gnat, you know? Really? I mean, it was like, it was a real, and at that moment I realized, like the inner voice in me said, Richard, you've got eternity to deal with. I have never been so frightened in my whole life. Because it wasn't until that moment I realized what it really meant to be an eternal being. Like eternal, right? Like I'm going to sit in that rocking chair and rock for billions and billions and billions of years. I could better get comfortable, right, with learning just to be still and know God. Okay? So here's a couple of things I want to talk tonight about strength. Okay? So strength isn't about how fast you can do it. It's about being able to keep on keeping on until you get the results that you want. Because for some of us, when the mountain is big, we don't want to play. You know, most of you know that I hike a lot. And one of the things about hiking, especially if you're hiking a long distance, is you've got to be able to stop the mental chatter when you hike, because your ego wants you to stop. When you know you're hiking a long way, you can come up with a million reasons not to do that hike, especially if you're by yourself, right? If you're with somebody, you're kind of committed. But when you're by yourself, right? So you have to decide that you want to keep taking the next step, even though you've done that hike maybe 100 times before, right? The third one is strength requires a level of focus so that we can keep on keeping on. We have to actually be focused on the direction we want to go and be willing to do that day in and day out when we're getting results and when we're not getting results. And then the key to strength is you just don't stop. How many of you can think of a time in your life where you know you stopped before the prize? Can everybody think of at least one time in your life where you know you gave up, you stopped simply because you didn't believe that your prize, your demonstration, your manifestation, your blessing was really going to come, so you just stopped and went home? Strength doesn't do that. Strength is willing to keep on, keeping on, day in and day out, with a steadfastness of spirit until you see what you wanted to see, till you create what you wanted to create, until you have what you wanted to have. See, I really think spiritual mastery is about two things. Spiritual mastery is about the ability to listen deeply to the Spirit of God within us. Really listen deeply to what we're being guided and directed into. And then the other half of it is to be able to stay steadfast until we see it manifest in our life. That we're able to kind of stay on purpose, stay on course, stay the direction, stay the course until we can actually manifest the good that we want. And over again, we give up. We stop. We go home. We complain. In the Old Testament, it says, then they murmured. Right? Because we don't have the steadfastness. We don't have the strength to keep going day in and day out until we see the manifestation that we want in our life. So what do you want? What do you really want in your life? And what would be so important to you that maybe you'd invest the rest of your life moving in that direction? What is so important to you that you'd be willing to invest the next 1,000 years? There was a chapel or a church in Bologna, Italy, and I remember it was white and brown, and it actually took them 100 years to build this chapel. In fact, it took them so long to build this chapel, if you've ever been to Bologna, Italy, that they actually had to sell half the property to finish the other side. So in 100 years, they only completed half of this chapel. And they worked every day. It was such an elaborate chapel. They worked, every day, but they worked on it continuously for 100 years and only got to half of it. Can you imagine anything in your life being so important to you that you to commit that level of time and energy and steadfastness to keep going in the direction that you decided that you wanted, that you decided that was important to you, until you saw the results that you wanted to see? See, we get distracted. And oftentimes, we've made our spiritual life like a commercial. You know, it used to be that the only commercials they showed on TV were 60 seconds. And then they went to 30 seconds. And now they're down to 6 seconds. Because our attention span has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. But sometimes you can't create a whole life in 6 seconds. Sometimes you can't have a goal big enough to satisfy your soul and have it done in an afternoon. So what's important enough to you that you'd be willing to be steadfast for over and over and over again? See, what builds our strength, and I'm going to share 4 of the things I think builds our strength. And the first one is love. And Lao Tzu said it this way: being deeply loved by someone gives you strength. Can I say that one more time? Being deeply loved by someone gives you strength, while loving someone deeply gives you courage. It's true, right? And when we feel profoundly loved, do you feel stronger or weaker? Are you willing to be more engaged in life when you feel profoundly loved, or are you less engaged in life? I think you're more engaged. We're more alive. We're willing to be more steadfast when we feel that we're profoundly loved. The next one that really affects in how we build strength is to really expand our level of faith and belief. If you believe that you're going to accomplish something, are you more willing to be steadfast or less willing to be steadfast? More. The third one is, I think that the more that we are inspired, the more we are steadfast. When we see somebody working toward their goals and accomplishing their goals, we tend to be willing to follow and do the same thing, even if they're not reaching them. Just somebody getting up every day toward their goal is inspiring us to do the same. And the fourth one is, and this has been his... throughout history, this has been one of the reoccurring themes, that when we don't believe we have a choice, we become more steadfast. And that's why they used to burn the bridges. They burned the boats. They burned the canoes. Because once you didn't have a choice, once there was no place to retreat to, are you more committed or less committed? You're more committed. I want to read from the Old Testament, from Joshua. And this is one of my favorite chapters. It's chapter 1 in Joshua. And the reason that I like this is Moses has just died. And God is coaching, literally coaching Joshua how to get his people into the promised land. And Joshua has been Moses' number 2 from the beginning. He's always been there to be of support to Moses. But now that Moses is gone, he has to move from being a number 2, a support, to being the leader. And God prepares Joshua to lead. And this is what it says. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land that I'm about to give you, to the Israelites. And I will give you every place you set your foot upon. As I promised Moses, I will promise you. This territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, to the great river Euphrates, to all the counties, all the country of the Hittites, to the Mediterranean Sea, as far to the west. No one will be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, I will be with you. So I will be with you, and I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, because you shall lead these people to inherit the land that I swore to their ancestors to give them. Be strong and of good courage. Be careful to obey all the laws that my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn to the right or to the left, and you will have success wherever you go. Keep the book of laws on your lips and meditate upon them day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything that is written in them. And then you will prosper and you will be successful. Have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Is that pure coaching? How many times did he say to Joshua, be strong and of good courage, for I shall cause these people to inherit the land that I promised their ancestors that I would give them? See, what I want you to see over and over again, that God has made us absolute promises. that the glory of God is ours. We've been promised all the good that God is. But if every day we're changing our agenda, we never really lay hold of all the good that God has for us. If today we have a goal and tomorrow we have another goal and the next day we have another goal and the day after that we even have another goal, and we never get far enough down the path to really claim all the good that God has for us. And over again, what God said to Joshua is, be strong and of good courage. Today, I want you to really look at how steadfast you are. That whatever you say you want, whatever your thing is, whatever your desire, whatever your commitment is, have you given yourself the opportunity to go far enough in that direction to actually have it? Or do you get bored or tired or worn out and then you change course? And when you change course over and over again, you never really get to see the glory of God that was promised to you from the beginning. So what's one thing in your life that you'd be willing to be 100% steadfast, dedicated to? That you decide that you're not going to give up on? That no matter how many times, no matter how many days, no matter how much energy, no matter how much inner healing, you would be about it over and over again till you reach the desire that you have. You got to be steadfast. Because every time you sell out, every time you change directions willy-nilly, you cheat yourself. As I was with Moses, I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. All the lands that you see, for as far as you can see, I have promised to you. I have promised to your ancestors. Be strong and of good courage, for you will cause these people to inherit the promised land. Will you pray with me? I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God that is right here, right now. That there is so much good, so much God. And we let go of any immature ways. We let go of all the parts of us that want to be willy-nilly and change directions and complain and murmur. And we're willing to be steadfast in our God. We're willing to be strong in God. We're willing to keep on keeping on until we see the glory of God exactly the way it is in our mind, in our hearts. There is no limit to God. There is no limit to good. And today we stay steadfast and we claim the glory of God in all things. And so it is. Amen.